A telegram arrives in the summer of 1945. The soldier is coming home. She waits 3 months before answering his letter. She waits because every other woman is waiting. Scarcity governs attention when supply overwhelms demand. The man who returned from war faced a mirror. Thousands of brides had married in haste. Thousands more now recalibrated their choices. When options multiply, selection criteria sharpen. The woman who once promised forever began measuring again. You see this pattern repeat across platforms today. A man sends a message and waits. She reads it immediately, but replies 3 days later. The delay is not an accident, it is a signal. Response windows communicate value in the attention economy. John understood the anima as the image you carry. The woman in your mind shapes the woman you pursue. If your inner image bows to scarcity, you chase. If your inner image holds sovereignty, you select. The throne inside determines the throne you claim outside. War brides faced a recalibration no textbook taught. They had married men defined by urgency and scarcity. Peace brought abundance and the luxury of second-guessing. Hypergamy is not moral failure. It is a selection reflex. When resources shift, attraction logic rewrites itself overnight. You must separate strategy from judgment here. She is not broken for seeking the best option. You are not weak for noticing the shift. Masculine sovereignty begins when you stop resenting the game. The rules you live by matter more than the rules you wish existed. The forge does not apologize for heat. It burns away weakness, leaving only tempered steel. She tests your frame because untested frames collapse. Boundaries without enforcement are suggestions written in smoke. The man who holds his ground earns respect. The man who yields earns contempt. Post-war divorce rates spiked in 1946 and 1947. Women who had married soldiers reconsidered under peacetime light. The same face looked different when desperation faded. Hypergamy operates on updated information and shifting context. What attracted under pressure repels under scrutiny. You cannot negotiate attraction through logic or plea. She will not choose you because you deserve it. She will not stay because you sacrificed everything. Dating dynamics obey the evolutionary code, not the fairness doctrine. The man who internalizes this stops wasting energy on bitterness. The shadow holds what you deny about yourself. If you rage against her selection process, look inward. Your anger reveals the part of you that fears inadequacy. Individuation requires facing that fear without flinching. The mirror shows you what you refuse to claim. A bride in 1945 faced social pressure to stay loyal. A woman in 2025 faces an infinite number of options on a screen. The principle remains the same: leverage determines the outcome. When her options multiply, your singular attention loses currency. Access scarcity is the only scarcity she respects. You reclaim leverage by becoming difficult to access, not through game or tactic, but through genuine priority shift. The man who has a mission, boundary, and threshold stops chasing. She notices absence faster than she notices presence. Gravity pulls toward the center that holds, not the edge that begs. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power as a creative force. You either shape your world or the world shapes you. The man who waits for her approval abdicates his throne. The man who moves without her permission claims his kingdom. Masculine sovereignty is not dominance, it is self-possession under pressure. War brides returned to men who had changed. Some men came back broken, some came back harder. The women did not leave because they were cruel. They left because the frame had shifted beneath them. Selection is ruthless when the frame no longer holds weight. You see the chessboard clearly once you stop playing checkers. Every text is a move, every delay is a counter-move. She measures your reaction to her silence more than her words. The man who panics reveals low value in real time. The man who continues his day without flinching reveals abundance. Response windows are her way of testing your need. If you chase during her silence, you fail the test. If you mirror her rhythm without resentment, you pass. Boundaries in dating dynamics are not walls, they are filters. The woman worth keeping will respect the threshold you enforce. The anima projection blinds you if left unexamined. You fall in love with the image, not the woman. She feels the weight of your fantasy and pulls away. Individuation means withdrawing the projection and seeing clearly. You, not she, must occupy the throne inside your mind. A soldier returned to find his bride distant and cold. He had imagined her waiting with open arms. She had imagined a different version of him returning. Both were chasing ghosts they had built in their absence. Hypergamy is the collision of expectation with updated reality. You cannot control her selection process, only your response. Rage at her nature is rage at gravity for pulling down. Strategy begins when you accept the rules without complaint. The man who adapts to reality outperforms the man who denies it. Masculine responsibility means owning your position in the game. The storm does not ask permission to rage. It moves according to its nature, indifferent to your protest. She selects according to her nature, indifferent to your merit. You can curse the storm or build a structure that withstands it. The forge teaches you to stop arguing with fire. Post-war hypergamy was not a moral collapse, it was pattern recognition. Women recalibrated when the scarcity of men evaporated. The same dynamic governs modern dating platforms today. When abundance replaces scarcity, selection becomes more ruthless. The man who ignores this pays the price in wasted time. You must become the option she cannot replace. Not through neediness or performance, but through scarcity of access. The man who is always available is never valuable. The man who enforces boundaries creates the space she respects. Attention economy rules apply. What is abundant loses worth. Jung believed the shadow contained your disowned power. If you refuse to claim your capacity for detachment, she will. If you refuse to claim your right to select, she owns the frame. The mirror reflects the parts of you that wait for permission. Individuation is the reclamation of that disowned sovereignty. War brides face stigma if they left too soon. Modern women face no such constraint in the attention economy. The principle remains the same: leverage determines the outcome. When her leverage exceeds yours, the frame tilts in her direction. When your leverage exceeds hers, the frame tilts in your favor. You reclaim the frame by withdrawing your validation, not as punishment, not as manipulation, but as self-respect. The man who needs her approval cannot lead the relationship. The man who moves without her validation becomes the prize. Masculine sovereignty is the refusal to beg for what you offer freely. The throne is not taken by force, it is claimed by presence. She will test whether you occupy it or merely sit near it. Every boundary you fail to enforce is a test you fail. Every time you chase her silence, you abdicate the throne. The man who holds his center without apology earns her respect. Selection is not sin, it is the mechanism of evolution. She is not evil for wanting the best option available. You are not weak for wanting to be chosen. But wanting to be chosen and demanding to be chosen are different. The man who demands betrays the insecurity she will exploit. A bride in 1945 weighed duty against desire. A woman in 2025 weighs nothing but optimization. The game is intensified, but the nature remains unchanged. Hypergamy accelerates when cultural brakes are removed. The man who cannot adapt to velocity will be left behind. You do not fix hypergamy. You navigate it. You do not shame her for selection. You become unignorable. Dating dynamics reward the man who holds his threshold. The moment you lower your boundary to keep her, you lose her. The forge burns away the need to be liked at any cost. Jung taught that the anima must be integrated, not worshipped. If you place her image on a pedestal, you kneel below it. If you integrate the feminine principle, you stand beside it. Individuation is the refusal to let her approval define your worth. The mirror shows you the part of yourself you gave away. War brides left men who returned as shadows of themselves. They did not leave because they were heartless. They left because the frame had collapsed under trauma. Hypergamy is the withdrawal of investment from a failing structure. The man who rebuilds the frame rebuilds the attraction. You see the pattern clearly once you stop making it personal. She is not rejecting you. She is following her code. You are not failing. You are learning the rules you live by. Masculine sovereignty begins when you stop arguing with reality. The throne inside your mind must be defended before any external throne. The storm passes over the mountain without changing its shape. The mountain does not plead with the storm to be gentle. She will test you with silence, delay, and shifting attention. You pass the test by remaining unmoved in your center. The man who chases the storm is swept away by it. Post-war hypergamy revealed what peace always reveals: truth. The woman who stayed during the war left during the abundance. The man who assumed loyalty discovered leverage instead. Selection logic does not pause for sentiment or sacrifice. The rules you live by govern outcomes more than the rules you prefer. You reclaim your position by refusing to play from weakness, not through arrogance or cruelty, but through self-possession. The man who knows his value does not beg for recognition. The man who enforces his boundary does not explain it. Masculine responsibility is the refusal to negotiate your threshold. The shadow whispers that you are not enough. The shadow tells you to lower your standard to keep her. The shadow trades sovereignty for the illusion of security. Individuation is the moment you stop listening to that whisper. The mirror cracks when you finally see yourself clearly. A soldier came home expecting the woman he left. She came home expecting the man she imagined. Both discovered the gap between projection and reality. Hypergamy is the closing of that gap through ruthless selection. The man who survives it learns to close his own gaps first. You cannot shame her into choosing differently. You cannot logic her into feeling what she does not feel. Dating dynamics obey attraction code, not fairness protocol. The man who internalizes this stops wasting time on resentment. The Forge teaches you to stop arguing with heat. Jung understood that individuation is a lonely path. You must withdraw the projection and face yourself. The woman in your life will not complete you. She will only reflect the completeness you already claim. The throne inside must be occupied before the throne outside matters. Wall brides made choices that scandalized their communities. Modern women make choices that scandalize no one. The principle underneath remains constant across generations. Hypergamy accelerates when constraint is removed from the system. The man who cannot navigate acceleration will be replaced. You navigate by becoming the scarcity she cannot ignore, not through withholding love, but through withholding availability. The man who is always present becomes invisible. The man who enforces boundaries becomes the gravitational center. Attention economy rules apply. Scarcity creates value. Abundance erodes it. The mirror shows you what you refuse to claim. If you will not claim your right to walk away, she will. If you will not claim your right to select, she owns the frame. Masculine sovereignty is the reclamation of that disowned power. The shadow contains everything you need, but refuse to touch. A bride in 1945 recalibrated when scarcity lifted. A woman in 2025 recalibrates with every swipe. The speed has changed, but the principle remains the same. Hypergamy is not pathology, it is an optimization reflex. The man who resents optimization will lose to the man who embodies it. You embody it by refusing to compromise your threshold, not as cruelty, not as a game, but as self-respect. The man who bends his boundary to keep her breaks himself. The man who holds his boundary becomes the option she chases. The throne is claimed by the refusal to abandon your center. Jung believed the self emerges through conflict and integration. You do not become sovereign by avoiding the storm. You become sovereign by standing in the storm without breaking. She will test whether your frame is real or a performance. The mirror will show you which parts of you still beg. Wall brides left because the frame collapsed under pressure. Modern relationships collapse under the same principle. A weak frame. The woman does not leave because she is cruel. She leaves because the structure no longer holds her weight. Masculine responsibility is the maintenance of that structure without apology. You maintain it by enforcing the rules you live by. Not the rules you wish existed, but the laws that govern outcomes. Dating dynamics reward the man who understands leverage. The moment you chase her approval, you lose the frame. The moment you reclaim your attention, the frame shifts back. The storm does not negotiate with the mountain. The mountain does not chase the storm when it leaves. She will come and go as she pleases. You stand according to your own, indifferent to her rhythm. The forge burns away the need for her validation. Post-war hypergamy was a mirror held to every marriage. Some men saw themselves clearly and rebuilt. Some men saw themselves clearly and walked away. Both responses honored the truth the mirror revealed. Selection is not cruelty, it is the price of clarity. You pay the price by refusing to lie to yourself. Not about her nature, not about your position. The man who pretends he holds the frame while chasing loses twice. The man who admits he lost the frame can reclaim it. Individuation begins with the admission that you gave your throne away. Jung taught that the hero's journey requires descent. You must go down into the shadow before you rise. The parts of you that fear her rejection must be faced. The parts of you that need her approval must be integrated. The mirror shows you the self you buried to keep her comfortable. War brides did not owe loyalty to broken frames. Modern women do not owe loyalty to weak boundaries. The principle underneath is ruthless but not malicious. Hypergamy selects for strength, not sentiment. The man who cannot embody strength will be deselected. You embody strength by occupying your throne without apology, not through dominance or control, but through presence. The man who is present in his power does not chase. The man who chases has already abandoned his center. Masculine sovereignty is the refusal to beg for what you are. The throne inside your mind is the only throne that matters. She will test whether you occupy it or pretend to. Every boundary you fail to enforce is a test you fail. Every time you chase her silence, you reveal your need. The man who needs nothing from her becomes everything she wants. A soldier returned to find the woman he loved had changed. He had changed too, but could not see it. Both were chasing images that no longer matched reality. Hypergamy is the collision of fantasy with updated truth. The man who survives learns to stop chasing ghosts. You stop chasing by reclaiming your attention as currency. Not as a tactic, not as a game, but as self-respect. The man who gives his attention freely devalues it. The man who withholds his attention until earned commands respect. Attention economy rules govern modern dating dynamics without exception. The forge does not apologize for burning. It burns because that is its nature. She selects because that is hers. You enforce your boundary because that is yours. The mirror shows you the man who finally stopped asking permission.